Welcome to the Church Safety and Security broadcast with the Church Safety Guys, sponsored by Checkr, background screens for your faith or volunteer organization. The Church Safety Guys is a nonprofit organization. Our mission is to inspire, influence, and impact church safety and security teams. We are protectors, guardians, ambassadors, and shepherds. We are about all things church safety and security, which starts with a ministry mindset and a servant's heart. Join us for the next hour as the Church Safety Guys unpack safety, security, leadership, and ministry operations with your hosts, James McGarvey, Paul Buckner, and Mike Scully. This broadcast is also available on social media, YouTube, your favorite podcast platforms, and on the all-new Church Security app.
Well, good evening and welcome to the Church Safety and Security broadcast. I am James and I'm joined by Mike and Paul tonight, live in person.
Yep. Welcome back from vacation, sir.
Coming to you from three corners of the US of A.
You know, I'm still in that stage where I'm trying to wonder if it truly was a vacation with the travel frustrations and the unpacking of stuff. But yeah, it was nice to take a quick break, and I can't tell you all of the locations that we went for security, and no, I don't care. We went on a cruise. So which I've got a funny story about that I want to share with you guys. But first of all, if you've just joined us or you haven't listened to us in a while, welcome back. Thanks for joining us. And if you're listening to this broadcast at a future time, feel free to click like and subscribe from YouTube on the lower right-hand corner. Otherwise, you can subscribe on your favorite podcast. And that way, when we get new episodes, which is usually about once a week, you'll be notified and you can hear what's going on and stay on the cutting edge. So if you're listening tonight to the live session, you're welcome to post where you're listening from in your church. And if you have any questions throughout our topic tonight, we always do our best to try and get to them. So we'll definitely do that. But so funny story. So yeah, I went on a cruise. It was a 5-day cruise, and my family was trying to navigate some of the CDC protection. And what was funny about it was I had to go for a period of time, as most of you listening probably know, that I had to go for a period of time without a firearm on, and that was a nervous mental tick that I had to deal with.
It's strange when you're used to carrying every day. I jokingly call it my emotional support firearm. We had this conversation when I flew up to the conference, because when you know how dangerous the world can be and you develop a particular set of skill sets to combat that, and then you can't carry the tools that complement the skill set, you look like a nervous cat in a room full of rocking chairs.
So it was pretty funny. At one point, we went to Mexico, and we went on this excursion that was really cool. And, it was kind of interesting because you're in a place, and somebody mentioned this to me today at church, and I was like, oh yeah, that's very true. But they're like, yeah, how does it feel when you're not supposed to carry in a place where 50% are carrying illegally? And I'm like, I'd like to see the stats on that and the statistics. But I'm like, at the end of the day, I'm like, you're probably not wrong. So, but what was funny was the funny portion of this. I'll mention this story real quick. So we're on this excursion in Mexico, and we got up close in this wildlife reservation down there, state park, and type thing. And we're seeing crocodiles and seeing animals, and it's gorgeous. Like, the area is just really nice. People are extremely friendly, no complaints whatsoever. But me, the same way as many of our listeners and you guys, when you go someplace you're not familiar with and you're in that type of setting, you're looking around, right? You're trying to keep your awareness level up. You're like, okay, what's going on? Because, right, exactly. So your head's on a swivel. And for me, it's like there's nothing worse than going to a touristy type location and screaming at the top of your lungs, I'm a tourist, being with this excursion and tour guide, right? Because you've got people that come up to you, even in a park, vendors that'll come up to you and be like, would you like to buy my ware? Please, please buy my ware, support my family.
So it's not about the pants you're wearing. It's just literally you got the look of kidnap me first.
Right, exactly.
And that, my friend, is why you fake Russian accent. Scariest accent there is. No one kidnaps you.
I'll keep that in mind next time I go to Mexico. So we're walking around, and the tour guide, we stop at this little place to get, like, there's food and refreshments there, and there's like 5 or 6 little huts where you can go in and buy hand carved stuff and coral and different things native to that area of Mexico. And so of course my family, gets off the bus and they're like, we want to see all the huts, and just scatters. And I'm like, wait, come back here, Yeah, I think I had a mini heart attack or a stroke. But anyhow, so I pair off with my youngest daughter, and she has a thing for elephants. She really likes carved or just elephants in general. And so she saw this carved elephant. This one hut had carved elephants, hand carved out of wood, very exquisite, looked great. It wasn't like fake manufactured stuff or anything. They were done very nicely. And so we were going to walk in, and I noticed she looked at one item and she zipped over to it, and I'm behind her. And of course the merchant comes up, and he sees us looking at this elephant, and he picks it up off the shelf and he's dusting it off and he's holding it, and he's like, would you like to buy? And I said, well, how much are you asking for it? Well, the tour guide had said before we got to that point that don't pay the first price, like negotiate. And a lot of people don't care, they just pay whatever. Well, that's not me. Like, I care. I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to go and overpay for something. So I stepped back and I grabbed my daughter and I said, okay, watch, I kind of tried to use it as a teaching moment. I said, watch his body language, watch what he's doing, Patrick Van Horn on the spot. Right. And I said, so are you really interested in this? Do you really want to buy it? And she's like, yeah, I really like it, Dad. So I said, okay, let me negotiate with him and just watch. And she's like, okay. So I said, how much do you want for this, this elephant? And he's like, $89. Ooh. Now, I mean, the elephant is like, if you can't see my hands, it's probably a good 7 or 8 inch elephant. It's not really worth $100. Okay. No. So I said to him, really? $100? And he's like, well, no, $89.99. I told you, and he's going on and on. I'm like, okay, wait a second. I said, I'm not paying $89 for an elephant. And I grabbed my daughter's arm and I'm like, let's go. And so I walk straight, like, didn't stop or anything. And she's like, but like, and I'm like kind of pulling her. So and as we leave the hut, I get to the sand in front of the hut, and I kind of leaned over to her and I said, just wait for it. Sure enough, 2 steps outside the hut, he comes back over to us. He's like, wait, sir. He's like, what about this price? What about? And I'm like, $20. I'll give you $20. So we haggle back and forth, and we finally come to this point where we're agreeing on a price. I think it was like $38. And I'm like, you know what? That's probably fair. I don't want to be too hard. This guy has to feed his family. The emotional side of me kicks in, right? I don't know. But anyhow, so it was the rest of the trip. I am not joking. It was hilarious because my daughter, I later heard her, like, her eyes were this big. She's like, I thought you weren't going to buy it. I thought you were walking away. And I said, that's the point. If you think I'm walking away, then he's going to think I'm not interested and walking away. So it kind of sparked for some great conversation, and honestly, it was hilarious because the rest of the trip, whenever somebody wanted to buy something, my daughter was like, "Well, make sure you get a good price. Have Dad go over there and negotiate." And I'm like, "Oh my goodness, who knows?" But anyhow, so I'll throw it over to you guys. You both have had a fairly busy week. Fun times. You're on mute there, Mike. Or your mic is on mute, Mike.
Who's on first? What? Yeah, no, I was starting to say that we had 30 people in the house for our kickoff, what we call Friendsgiving. So it was a potluck, our first of multiple Thanksgivings, I guess you'll call it, this season.
Nice.
But it was nice.
Awesome.
Do you actually give friends away at that point? Because I'm trying to figure out how this works, because I've got a couple of friends I could see giving away. So
we put it to this way. It's kind of like Survivor, and we try to make sure we don't offend anybody by the end of the night. So we're not getting rid of any friends.
Oh, fair enough. Fair enough. You are the weakest link.
Yeah,
I like it.
You didn't like the turkey? No soup for you. Go.
No soup for you. We had gone. My wife and I had gone on vacation. Her daughters, their significant others, we all went down and met in Gulf Shores, Alabama, and had a blast down there. But you were reminding me when you told the haggling story briefly. We went to the Caribbean almost 20 years ago, and we ended up being the ones that always negotiated the group rate for dinner, the group rate for the tour, the group rate for the taxi, because when we first got down there, and I'm not a vindictive person or an argumentative person, but I understand that they want a group rate. And what I did that my fellow trip takers in our group didn't do was I was like, I would negotiate it for one. Then I would negotiate it and mention the fact that there might have been 17 or 18 others of us. And we got a really good deal. So by the second time we'd done it, everybody in the family and friends group was like, no, Paul and Sherry, they're going to go handle the negotiating and the haggling. They do a really good job. Because one of my relatives came back and he was boasting about this price he'd gotten, and it was like $3 a head more almost 20 years ago to do this tour. And everybody looked at us and looked at him. And after that, we ran the haggling operation.
Yeah, I mean, from that standpoint, and that was the serious part of the conversation that I had with my kids was, watch the body language. I mean, obviously I've done more interaction stuff, negotiating stuff with them, but I mean, if you've done it a few times, you're going to compromise. I mean, nobody says yes on the first price, right? So there's a few things that you consistently or typically can look for in that sort of thing. But it was interesting because when we were coming back, my son is 10 and he's very good at 10 and not having a filter. something you'll look forward to, Mike, yeah. I'm sure. And so, we're in the dining room on these on this cruise, and of course, he's not always, he's very direct. He's not always tactful when he asks for something or that sort of thing. And so we're working on him with that. And one of the things my wife said, which I thought was kind of funny when we left, was we're going to have to work on teaching you better social awareness skills. And I'm like, that's a good way of putting it. But yep. I like the fact that my wife was very much, mentioning that and commenting on that. And I think that goes for a long way, especially with the kids too. I mean, I had my entire family, there's 6 of us. And so, they didn't have, thankfully their phones didn't work. We were in an area where they didn't get cell reception. I did with my phone, but it was a good coaching experience to kind of come back to, hey, keep your head on a swivel, look around to what's really happening around you, and being aware of that. So, but anyhow, tonight we wanted to talk about the Church Security Essentials Conference that we did back in October. I can say back in October because it was over a month ago. It doesn't feel like it's been
already November, and it's like, what the heck?
November's half gone already, right? So what we're going to do for those of you that didn't have a chance to come up to Ohio for that conference, we're going to play a short snippet here and then of the conference put together graciously by our tech guru, Jason, and then we'll come back and we'll chat a little bit about it. So I'm going to cue this up, and then we should be good to go.
Good morning, everybody.
We started the church safety guys unofficially about 5 years ago now, and inspire folks to take that God's word back to their team and strengthen their team, because
we need our people, our team members, to feel inspired. There's a common trend here. We need our teams to be influenced, so we as leaders need to help influence them.
I'm definitely a goofball, and if I make a mistake and everybody can learn from it, or if I see something, a lot of times somebody's had an amazing thing happen at their church, and I'm like, man, we got to get you on the show, or we need to talk about that.
All right, everybody raise your phones. Who's got the app? I'm going to do this all day, so we're going to get practice here. Our keynote speaker, without further ado, John Riley from Gentle Response.
Hey, good morning, everybody. And I was drawn to Proverbs 15:1. And I looked through all the different translations, and some of the translations state a soft answer turns away wrath, or a gentle answer turns away wrath. But none of those verses resonated with me. They didn't make sense in terms of a business name. I didn't see it. But then in the Message translation, a gentle response diffuses anger. And I found my business name because I have seen that work. I get it, I can't park there, but where was the ministry? Where was the friendly greeting? Hey, welcome to church. Sure, you can't park there, but if you come with me on one of the church parking lot attendants, I'll help you find a spot. I'm just saying, when was the last time you were just, ticked off? Now think about something someone could have said that would have just de-escalated you. It doesn't happen. It takes time to come down from that emotional spike. It takes time. I have successfully and effectively de-escalated people who were really loud, rude, obnoxious, and sometimes trying to hurt me. It can be done. It can be very challenging, but it can be done. Been there, done that. And it really boils down to you being very well aware and being able to play your ace card. There will be times when there's nothing you can say to it.
With that, let's bring up Dr. Brian Patterson.
Your job is to assess and respond, as John talked about, as James and his team have talked about, to respond to a potential threat. To respond appropriately, the mental health status of church security personnel is relevant before a crisis occurs. How come? Bottom line is, you cannot be what you need to be for church security if you're not healthy at home. Self-discipline. Move toward your challenges. Warriors don't run.
We worship God and nothing and no one else. So my name is Semper. When you're at children's areas, what kind of issues are you going to have there? When you're in the congregation, what kind of issues are you going to have there? We never want to take anything for granted. What happens if the gas main breaks? What happens if there's electrical issue? If you don't have radios, are you going to be able to communicate that in some way, shape, or form? So these are a lot of different questions that you need to start asking yourself before a medical emergency happens. How many of you guys have dealt with a medical emergency within your facility?
We all have basic needs. Those needs are safety and security as individuals. We embody that in what we serve. Providing for or creating a safe environment for others helps us have purpose, helps them have purpose. Being part of a team or a ministry helps give us a sense of belonging. It helps give us connection. It's what we crave as humans. It's why COVID has wreaked so much havoc. We heard about that earlier. That connection is missing. We seek to contribute. We seek to be recognized. We seek to build our self-esteem, to increase our strengths and reduce our weaknesses. We aspire to do and be more, to grow and to achieve. We are called to be bold, to be assertive, to stand in that gap, to be the salt and the light. We may one day be the confronter, but we also have to always make sure we can be the comforter.
All right. So we are back, and if you just joined us, we just played a tiny clip of the Church Security Essentials October 2nd conference in Columbus, Ohio. We had a large group of people there, and if we put it up on a map, I know we had folks that came from North Carolina, Virginia,
Texas.
Kentucky. What was that? I didn't hear that.
Texas.
Oh yeah, Texas, Missouri,
Tennessee, Virginia,
Tennessee.
Maryland, Michigan.
Yeah,
There were some from Ohio.
maybe one or two.
Yep.
Yeah, all the Ohio churches that are listening are going to be like, forget this, fleet. We're done with you. But we went through, like any conference, anytime you do something like that, we always put out a survey, and or at least every time I've done one, I put out a survey and I ask people what they enjoyed about it, what they didn't like. And to be perfectly honest, and we really appreciate if you came to that and you're listening, I definitely appreciate you taking the time to fill out that survey. It was great getting to meet folks that we've listened to or that have interacted with us over the last couple of years. Amen. And finally see folks in person. But that what was crazy to me was it was definitely before the day started. One of the things that you all didn't see behind the scenes was we got together and we prayed. All of the speakers, the three of us, Jason, we prayed out in the hallway, and as long as I live, I'll never forget that, because to me, we wanted it to be a God-honored day. And I think it was when we go back, nothing went wrong. Everything went very well for our first conference. It was a great time of fellowship. It was very, very active. People stayed awake. People didn't fall asleep. But all joking aside, the survey results that we got back were extremely encouraging, and we appreciate you guys being honest. And I think most everyone that went said, when's the next one? When are you guys going to do the next one? Because we want to be a part of it and we want to come. And to hang out with you and do that. So to me, it was definitely a blessing, and certainly wouldn't have happened without you all being there, and certainly wouldn't have happened without prayer and, a lot of hard work on our side, and the church, definitely shout out to my church, Fellowship Baptist, for putting it on and hosting it. And quite a few folks from our church actually came in to help, with all the basic stuff, just the tear down, clean up, all that stuff. And that always makes it a lot easier. But all things considered, I was extremely happy of how it turned out. So I'll throw it over to you guys. We've got a few minutes before we take a break. So what were your thoughts on it?
Mike, you want to go first? You want me to go first?
I could jump in. That's fine.
Go for it.
It was amazing. I mean, I think it's only the second time the three of us have had a chance to get together.
True.
And I think even before we got the conference really even started, it was we got together the night before. That was great. Some fellowship there, and James, you hit it on the head. The prayer ahead of time, it just felt God move in that moment, and everything from that moment on, and the rest of the day, as you said, it just kept executing. It kept going so well, and it was one thing after another. And whether it was the VIP session with some folks came for early breakfast and early seats and things like that, and we got to meet some folks, and that was big. And I think, and that was really a theme for the whole day, is we tried to make it so that we had the space and the time to meet folks. We're out there standing in the trenches, in the rain, and this and that, whatever, serving as well in our own churches. Yeah. But we're not some celebrity, or I mean, we are authors, but at the same point, we're not taking ourselves so seriously that we're unapproachable. And we didn't jam pack the schedule so darn full that there wasn't breaks here and there where people could step forward and have a conversation. And I think that was great, as I enjoyed the conversations more than anything. But I think if I had to say one point and one takeaway from the entire day, was even though we planned overall topics and put them together under that essentials banner and truly felt like we were packaging up something that was essential for the church security professional, if you will. What was unreal and where God moved was how the narratives in each presentation of our keynotes had just an arc throughout the entire day, and wrapped at that end through our panel. You saw a clip where we had a chance to kind of close out, but also Dr. Patterson talking about what it takes to be a warrior, what it takes to kind of be that protector, and how we have to be prepared ourselves. And at the end of the day, it was kind of like the ultimate toolkit, the ultimate training, if you will. Sure. And yes, I'm biased, but I sit there and say, when you pull it all together and say, this is what was there, Essentials was absolutely a perfect name for it.
For sure. And I want to piggyback off that real quick, and then we'll definitely take a break, but because we have to go to break for sake of time. But what was interesting to your point of arcing through the topic and Dr. Patterson, Dr. Patterson was actually the most voted. Like when we asked in the survey results, when we asked people to say, hey, who would you like to hear more from? Who would you like to hear again from? Hands down, without a doubt, all of our speakers, like everybody was like, we want them all to come back again. But Dr. Patterson definitely received the most accolades for his topic. And what I find amazing about that, and that proves to me that it was a God thing, like what you said, I didn't tell them what to say. Like when I coordinated with them and said, hey, this is our topic, this is what we want to stay with. I'm thankful, I'm grateful that we've developed relationships, and I can call some of those speakers personal friends, and Dr. Patterson is one of them. That he's the type of guy that if I picked up my phone, he would be at my front door, doorstep saying, hey, what do you need, brother? Let me help you. And, I would do the same with him. But the reality of that is that I think it's awesome to step back and see God working and God moving when you have a situation like that. When, it's just like when you have an incident that your team responds to, and afterwards you step back and you're like, wow, all the pieces kind of came together and this went so well and it wouldn't have gone any better. God was in the middle of it and God was involved. And I definitely think that was one of the keys with this, because like I said, of the sake of, I didn't ask them to talk about specifically, I couldn't have engineered it that perfectly. Honestly.
Yeah, I was just going to say that we couldn't have packaged it that way if we tried. I mean, we put together core topics, yes, but the way it all wove together, the stories, the calls to action, the pieces that really kind of dug in. I mean, there were a number of times you could see the crowd really just, chewing on what they just heard. I mean, they were challenged and they were inspired, and they had to really kind of say, okay, I need to do some introspection. It wasn't just all talking heads talking at people, you should do this, you should do this. It really created an environment where they had to think about it and start to say, okay, how do I go back to my home church? And how do I look at this through a new lens? Because what I just went through here in this day, in this Essentials conference, is something new. It's a new way to look at it. And how can I use that?
For sure. And there's 2 points I want to come back to on that. And then I want to have Paul jump in and give his thoughts, but we're going to go ahead and take a quick break, sponsor break. And we will be right back with you guys. So don't go anywhere.
With over 50 years of experience with religious and nonprofit organizations, Thomas Alexander Insurance and Associates understands that your congregation is different from a traditional business. We're here to fulfill your needs, coming to you while creating a personal plan for your budget and size. From your local community to around the globe, we are advocates for you. Thomas Alexander Insurance and Associates, your partner in service.
Nobody thinks it will happen to them, but with over 2,000 emergency phone calls per month to our independent program attorney answered hotline, it's closer to home than you think. At US Law Shield, we give you exclusive access to our 24/7, 365 emergency hotline, not a call center, direct access to our network of independent program attorneys. With a price point of only $10.95 per month and unlimited attorney hours for criminal and civil defense, US Law Shield provides you with unparalleled service and protection where it matters most. No other program comes close. We believe an educated member is an empowered member. We do this by providing educational resources featuring seasoned attorneys, firearms instructors, law enforcement, and experts in all areas of self-defense law. We at US Law Shield believe peace of mind should come with simple and affordable protection.
What if there was a program so uniquely structured that it would help you protect your congregation and, at the same time, help you develop best practices to grow your ministry and be impactful in your community? What if there was a biblical resource that would offer thousands of hours of training and experience to guide you in keeping your ministry safe and secure and being prepared for the unexpected? What if you could have the collective instruction from public safety and security experts from all over the world at your disposal to help you with a biblical view of safety and security? Impossible, you say? Unlikely? It would be unheard of for someone to create something like that. We just did. Introducing the new biblically based one-year certificate and associate's degree program in church safety and security. Developed by the Church Safety Guys and Centurion Bible College, this program is designed to give you the best of everything possible. Learn on your schedule, at your convenience, with experienced industry leaders and receive college credit for it. Enhance your learning on protecting your ministry and community today. For more information, visit centurionbc.org or churchsafetyguys.com. Enroll to begin your path of biblical education and learning today.
The Church Safety Guys help church and place of worship safety and security teams all over North America through our broadcasts, online communities, conferences, trainings, resources, and the all-new Church Security app. Download it today. Help us continue to reach churches by supporting our sponsors, purchasing our resources, and consider becoming a ministry partner by making a monthly or one-time donation. Remember to like, subscribe, and share this broadcast with your team. And now, back to the broadcast.
All right, welcome back to the Church Safety and Security broadcast with the Church Safety Guys. I am James, and I'm joined by Mike and Paul tonight. If you just joined us, or this is the first time that you've listened to us, welcome. And you're welcome to click the like and subscribe button in the lower right-hand corner, and then you would get notified of anytime we do a new broadcast. And as always, you can reach out to us through churchsafetyguys.com, our website, and also the Church Security app that we've developed that has really hundreds of dollars worth of resources on there, and it's free, absolutely free to download, and it is in the Apple and Google stores. So all you have to do is go there, type in Church Security, and download that app, and you'll be all set. So I want to go back real quick. We're talking about the Church Security Essentials Conference, and just doing a little bit of a recap on it. And in the last segment, Jason actually put together a video for us of that. Joe Browning says, "Hey, I want my commission off that." Sorry, Joe. I'm not sure if I've seen a commission off of that either. But anyhow, it's pretty funny that one of the things that we were talking about was with Mike. Mike, you mentioned the building in time, and I want to go back to that for a second, and then throw it over to Paul. But the building in time component, I mean, we spent a lot of time trying to hash out the schedule and go over that, and that was the intent, because we wanted to build in. We wanted to build in a feeling of not rushing, right? Mm-hmm. To go from point to point. We didn't want people to show up, because we've all been to conferences before where we were frustrated because we had 5 minutes. Okay, on to the next thing. And we really wanted to build a culture, if you will, to say, okay, this is the most ideal, perfect conference where we have enough time to be more relaxed, that we're not rushing. And there were several speakers, Patterson, that went over, but what was crazy about it and what was a lot of fun was that we had enough of a buffer built in that we were able to not show that, and everybody rolled with it. And it was great from the speaker's perspective, because they those listening were gracious as well to understand that. So I never, which is interesting, I've done a lot of conferences, and I've had people comment and complain that they went too long before, and it needs to be shorter and this and that. But we didn't get one person that complained about the length of time. And like you said, I think because of it being a captivating topic and content, it kind of brought people in so that they weren't looking at their watches, and they were like, hey, this is something. This is new. This is fresh. How do I take this back to my church? And taking it back to your church, that is one thing that we are working on. For those of you that can't or that couldn't make it, we're trying to go back through and edit the video and put it on a platform so that if you weren't there that day, you can go back and watch it and maybe even show your team. But to be perfectly honest, with the holidays and everything coming up, I'm not sure when that's going to happen. We're all extremely busy, and with projects, stuff coming out. I'm still working, or we're working pretty regularly with Centurion Bible College with some of those classes and trying to get that established and that sort of thing. So we don't have a definite date on that yet, but as soon as we have the info out, we'll share that for you guys and send it out. So Paul, what are your comments? I'll throw it over to you. You have 2 minutes. Okay,
yeah,
go.
And go. So first off, I was really honored when I got up there to Columbus and I found that James's church had named a room in their guest room in my honor. At their guest house, they'd named a room. I was deeply honored. I come walking up to it, and there's a placard above the door. It says like Paul's room, and I was like, I'll take this one. It was really, all kidding aside though, it was really great to roll in, and the only thing that I had to worry about was when to leave on the way out, and there was some weather, and God took care of it getting home. But that part was nice. And going through airport security and stuff and getting out and having my emotional support pistol once again was nice. But in all seriousness, I had wanted to meet John Riley for a long time, and I got to meet all the speakers and talk to all the speakers. And so getting to meet John Riley in person was awesome. There's now photographic and videographical evidence of us being in the same place at the same time. That was nice. And just, I think a lot of people got to see that we're not putting on airs. We really are like this. And all of us served at our churches in some capacity right before we left and right after we got back. And I really wanted to be, and I know you guys felt this way, approachable, to be able to come up and talk. And we've all been to an event before. I mean, even secularly, outside of the church completely, where you couldn't, as you were talking about, James, there wasn't time built into it. You couldn't approach and talk to the speaker. And so we tried to go around, all of us at some point or another was going around the room, was shaking hands, was visiting with people. And so for me, interacting between the sessions was huge. And talking to people, one gentleman walked up to me and he's like, I just want to let you know that you're in my head. And I looked at him and I was like, I am so sorry. And but he was talking about things that we've talked about on podcast episodes on our broadcast that have made him think or had an impact that was positive. And James, when we started doing this and started getting halfway serious, and Mike, you coming on board, the whole idea was, let's take our experience and save somebody else some heartache. Let's take what we've learned the hard way. And as we continue to grow and learn from our mistakes and change and upgrade our thinking, let's continue to offer that to people, because if we can shorten that learning curve, and now it's a curriculum, right? And now we're walking into the era of the professional church safety guy. That was huge for me, being able to interact with people and see that happening. If you'd told me 5 or 6 years ago that I would be in Columbus, Ohio, interacting with people, and we would be taking pictures with folks, people would come in for a VIP package early to meet us. I'd be like, right. And for me, part of my heart is I'm a chaplain. So one of the big things for me was people came up and said, hey, I love the fact that you're a chaplain. I love your heart. I'm retired law enforcement and I'm on this team, or I run this team. And so a lot of those interactions, that kind of stuff feeds the bulldog for me. So a lot of those interactions were huge. And of course, off camera, away from things, we got to have dinner. And so James actually took us out to Wendy's, and he took us out to a couple of really nice restaurants, but got to sit down and break bread with people that I care about in person. We got to do this right there together. And so that was huge for me. We've had several people reach out to us and say, when are you doing it again? And every time they say that, James starts to cry because he has to think about the logistics of that nightmare. But
Yep.
Give me another 6 months and I'll stop twitching about it. But it really was very fulfilling.
Well, first of all, how dare you? Wendy's is awesome. And second, how dare you? No, it was good. And next year is going to be, I think next year is going to be really busy. That's why we haven't, honestly, we haven't said, hey, we're going to do it again. We've talked a couple of times. We've talked about trying to do it at a different location, not in Columbus, like maybe moving it down to Texas or Georgia or, some location other than Central Ohio. But honestly, we've really been blessed by folks that have come in and reached out to us and said that they love the topic. They wanted us to do it at their church. And honestly, I think when I look at next year's schedule, I think it's just going to be a busy year. I think churches are really starting to come out of the COVID, and their people are attending conferences and doing webinars again now. And I know, so March we have, I think right now, I just added something else to the schedule in March. So now I think we've got 2 or 3 different things going on in March. That's just crazy. But one of the cool things that came out of it was actually we're starting up a relationship with the Idea Network, and for church resources and that sort of thing. And they've asked us to come. I'm actually doing a webinar with them next month, where a lot of churches, I get the opportunity to talk to a lot of pastors about church safety and the case for church safety and security, and hopefully kind of give them a ministry outlook and approach. And honestly, that's a piece from the conference. That's fruit of the conference and putting all of that together, that now other Christian organizations have reached out to us and said, we love what you guys are doing, which again, that just blesses us, that when we hear folks reach out to us and say that, it's always encouraging. So, Mike, did you have anything you wanted to jump back in and add?
It's funny, Paul, you talk about twitching and you talked about the room in the missions house. Yes, it was great to be blessed from that perspective. What was interesting for me is we're both under the same roof, and I'm sitting there thinking, okay, in our own houses, we're the alphas. So if something goes bump in the night, we're both responding, obviously. And I'm like sitting there, okay, we've never rehearsed this. If something does go, how are we going to make sure that we don't muzzle each other? And how are we going to basically respond if we had to? And so it just crossed my mind as we're doing that. And of course, we got a chance then after the conference to kind of talk through scenarios and do some play-by-play in the church. And that felt really good, because it really was taking everything we've embodied on our own and what we've used to teach our teams. But the 3 of us got to basically come together, having never trained alongside each other, except for, say, we've all taken the same course by Matt Combs. But at the same point, we've never really trained all together. So the fact that we were able in a matter of an hour really come together and almost tactically and seamlessly come together in motions as we were kind of going through that afternoon was pretty impressive. Like I was like, wow, you'd think we train weekly together, because formation, everything about it just fell into place. And so that was another piece off camera that wasn't part of the conference, but a chance that the 3 of us got to talk through scenarios and really kind of talk through kind of training and response and clearing and other sorts of activities. That was just a whole heck of a lot of fun.
Just another example of, you need to get out of my head, Paul.
I enjoyed that. We got to talk about, there's a hallway in your church that may be a death trap, and just things like that.
Hallway of death.
We were all having those conversations, and actually Mr. Hanna was talking about that. He's like, I walked down that hallway and I was like, oh, and that's one of the things, I mean, to bring it all the way back around, that's one of the things about training, that the more training you have and the more experience that goes with that, you can look at stuff and be like, nope, not doing that, or this is how this needs to be handled. And I was with a group the other day, that somebody was really struggling with his trigger pull. And so we are in a safe direction on the other side of a room. There's a couple guys behind us, and we've got a muzzle pointed at a wall. So we're golden. And this guy walks up without thinking and looks behind him, and for some reason walked right around in front of us. And so as I'm acting like, okay, are you feeling this? What are you feeling there? Did you take this off? And I see this guy come out of my peripheral vision. I didn't even think about it. I shot my hand up underneath this guy's hands where he was holding the weapon and lifted it. And the guy absentmindedly walked right through where the weapon had been. And the guy I was working with is like, thank you. And the other guy turned around and was like, oh, I am so sorry. And that's like I literally had people in that room when I walked over and visually and physically confirmed that weapon was empty. Like, come on, Paul, we're not going to play with this. We're going to train. We're going to practice what we train. We're going to be careful. And that was one of the things I respected about when we were talking was there was a point where there were some weapons out and muzzle discipline. And was that weapon empty? And how are we going to do this? And what was the safe way to have that conversation as this was being talked about? I love that, and to bring it all the way around to the other aspect, it's that camaraderie that makes it worth it. It's that iron sharpening iron. It's that working off each other. And how many times have we learned something from each other? James, I had never thought of my church as a city until you started talking about your church as a city. And now we're running 1,500 people a Sunday, and my last church was like 200 people. And when you start thinking about that differently, you start thinking about traffic flow differently. You start thinking about medical differently. You start thinking about all these things, fire safety, tornado safety, whatever. And so that was one of the things when we were talking off camera, away from folks, and having some of those conversations with John and Mr. Hanna and just different folks as we were walking around. That was one of the biggest things for me that I enjoyed.
Yeah, it was big. There was one point that I think came out of the legal segment, and we had U.S. Law Shield as one of our sponsors, and it was always something I crossed my mind before, but the way they put it, and it just kind of stuck out to me, was in a situation where if there is a use of force that has to occur, is be the complainant, be the one that goes and basically be the one that informs on the basis. Obviously retain your right to kind of privacy and not speaking too much and be careful, but at the same point be the one that kind of at least gives a quick, this is what happened, because you establish yourself as a primary right off the beginning and not somebody they have to chase to get more information, or somebody that they size up incorrectly or have it. So that was a really big one. And then Aaron Hanna talked a bit about Dr. March in assessments and doing medical assessments and things like that. I thought that was a really good acronym and looking at that approach. Billy Daubenmeier spoke about Two-Way Radio Center, and we had our insurance sponsor, Thomas Alexander. Dio Simpkins was there. I mean, there were just some really great segments, even above and beyond the keynotes. And so I think that's where the big deal was. And Brian, Dr. Patterson, he had two. So he didn't just talk once and talk about unpacking mental health, which was a amazing topic and really deep. But I think that I highlighted a little bit earlier, that whole being a warrior mindset and what it takes, that we have to get ourselves right before we walk through that doorway. And we saw it on the clip. The three of us literally kind of coming out of a tunnel, almost like at a football game. We're kind of breaking as we go into the conference to get things started on there. And that's kind of what it felt like, though, is we prayed ahead of time. We got ourselves right. We were of the right mindset. And while we weren't serving in the capacity of keeping that room safe necessarily that day, we still kind of rose to the occasion and showed up in that way that we're called to. So it's just so many different things. It's just like I want to go back and watch pieces of it myself, because with all the logistics and everything else we were doing that day, it's like, wait, I missed that. I want to rewind. I want to see that piece again. So I'm excited when those, at least the keynotes anyway, become available as an on-demand package and things like that. I think it's a tremendous opportunity. And for those of you looking at closing out budgets at the end of the year here or different things. If there's dollars left over you haven't spent on training because of COVID, other things like that, this is something you may want to consider buying a package for and making available for your team, because there's just so much there that's valuable for them.
I honestly, I wish that I had had more time, because I heard snippets, little bits and pieces of John's presentation, of Brian's presentation, and I would love to be able to go back. So I'm actually looking forward to it too. And I know Brian is very much unapologetically a Christian conservative veteran. I don't know how to say it any other way. I mean, he just has a way of cutting through a lot of political correctness, and he's very much unapologetic when he does it. And a lot of times he said some stuff that I know kind of shocked some people coming from him, but he is very good at motivating, and at, when you finish listening to the section, I know, like, when I finished listening to the point when he was talking about being a warrior, I was like, like, all right, let's go. Let's do this. So it was definitely, it was energizing. It was good. It was a lot of fun. Getting to hang out with Jason, and we got to spend some time with him. And then, I mean, it was fun hanging with you guys too. I had a gentleman at my church come up to me today, and through the conference and through our time hanging out on Sunday, he came up to me today and he's like, I've been watching some of your videos on YouTube. He's not even like, he has nothing to do with church security, church safety. He's like, I just know you, and I know that you're a speaker for that, and you have a ministry and you do this. So I was kind of curious. And he's like, I was just blown away. He's like, and then he said, you really need to go talk to other churches about what you're talking about. I'm like, oh my goodness.
We will consider this carefully.
Yes. Well, and it's funny. I said, my spring, our spring is looking really busy at the moment. And he's like, well, get some churches from Hawaii then. And I said, you know what? I said, nice. I appreciate the encouragement, sir. I said, you're not wrong. I said, we need to start finding some churches that want us to visit from Hawaii instead of,
that would be nice.
Antarctica or Iceland.
Well, and that's one of the things that's been amazing about this journey is we get phone calls or private messages, email contact with people that some of the conversations that the Lord has opened up for us to have. If the person asking the question, seeking the answer, if we said their name, you would know who they are. And that's not a, look at us. That's a holy cow, look what God has done. And that's one of the journeys. We were talking about this not long ago, James. As God opens these doors and we walk through them faithfully, it's not about money. I don't know about y'all, but I ain't drawing no check. And, there's no money coming in for me, but the books are there to help people. James, you write your tail off. He'll tell me that he's got this idea, guys, for you guys listening at home. He'll have this idea for a book that he and Mike's working on. And then like 30 seconds later, he's got it done. And I'm like, holy cow. But God has put a tailwind behind that.
I'm not sure about the 30
I'm being a little silly, but quickly, because we're running out of time. But God has done things and blessed things. And I had a conversation with a young man recently about my chaplain ministry that I think applies to this, because I said it's all about God. So at no point am I going to try to take glory when God does something. It's about God. And that's how we try to do this. Mike, you're nodding. That's how we try to do this with the church safety guys is the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. But blessed be the name of the Lord. And so watching God open these doors and have these conversations, I've talked to people that have the most amazing squared away church safety teams, and they have budgets. I don't know what a budget is, but they sound amazing. And I'm like, can I come to your church and hang out with your church safety team? because some of these churches have been doing this for a long time and they're extremely squared away. And it's really comforting. We talk about commiserating with each other, but when you're talking to somebody halfway across the country and they're 7 levels ahead of where you are because you're in a rebuilding phase, might be talking about my church, but if you're in a rebuilding phase, it's really encouraging. And I'll bring it all the way around. You really need to develop a group of people around you that are part of other church safety teams that you can talk to, because you're going to have common problems. There's going to be common solutions. And we try to bring a lot of that stuff to the table. James?
I don't have anything else. That was a perfect wrap up. So if you want to go ahead and close this in prayer, then we'll call it a night.
I'd love to. All right, gentlemen. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord God, I thank you for these moments. I thank you for my friends in the church safety guys, Lord God. I thank you for the family and the friends that we've built, some of whom are across the country, Lord God, and we've even heard from people in different parts of the world. Lord God, we're united by one faith, which is in you, Father God, and in your Son. And Lord God, I thank you for the fact that regardless of background, we have an opportunity to serve you and protect the flock. And Lord God, I ask that you would help this podcast and broadcast to reach the right ears. Lord God, that you'd continue to bless those that hear it, that you'd give them the right opportunities, give them favor with their leadership in their church, that they can protect the flock with that heart that's based on ministry, that heart that loves first and foremost, Lord God. So I thank you for James. I thank you for Mike. I ask that you would guide, bless, and protect them. And we just say this in your Son, Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. So next week, we will actually be talking to Jared Teslav, and he is actually with Rock Point Church. And I had the opportunity a few weeks ago to do a webinar with him with Checkr. And he is a retired law enforcement officer, and he is now a pastor. But what's interesting is that he also is the oversight pastor for his church, his safety team. And his church, it was kind of interesting because they basically took his law enforcement and safety experience and said, we want you to be this pastor and oversee this for us. And it is a larger church, but it is actually a church plant, a Hillsong. So we will have him on. We'll be chatting with him. Jared's a great guy. And then following that, we are actually going to be taking the next 2 weeks off for Thanksgiving. And we will be back following that with, we'll be talking about some facility safety. We'll have some facility folks on again. Dia Simpkins with Thomas Alexander Insurance will be joining us. So we'll be talking about insurance things, and we'll wrap up the year, I believe, on our 75th episode. Might be more. I got to go back and recount, but
wow. 75. When you put a number on it, when you put a number on it.
So anyhow, thanks for joining us tonight and hanging out. Have a great week. And as always, if we can help you out in any way, please feel free to reach out to us through the website, churchsafetyguys.com, or you can reach out to us through the Church Security app. So until next time, take care, God bless, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thank you for joining the Church Safety and Security broadcast with the Church Safety Guys, sponsored by Checkr. We hope that you found it informative, and we appreciate your feedback. Be sure to share our broadcast with your teams. Join the discussion online, and for other great resources, download the Church Security app or visit our website at churchsafetyguys.com. Remember, keep a servant's heart, a mindset of ministry, and Semper Disciplina. Always be training. Have a blessed week.